Hey there friends, how are you doing today? We are about to talk about how to make a marketing strategy, part 2. So if you haven't watched part 1 yet, go back and check out that video about what is strategy anyway. But if you've already watched that, tune in and let's get started. Hi there, I'm Lauren, owner of Marketing to Mission, where we get the pleasure of working with business owners in Bucks and Montgomery County, PA, to help them clarify their message, simplify their marketing so that they can focus on their mission. As I mentioned, today we're talking about marketing strategy, more particularly how to make a marketing strategy for your business. So your specific business, how do you even get started thinking about, okay, what are the things that I should do? As I mentioned, be sure that you have watched part 1 about what strategy actually is. So here's the important thing. If we're thinking about strategy, the place that you need to begin is with your persona. It's with your favorite customer, your ideal client to work with. Now, if you've heard me talk about personas or even marketing at all, this really shouldn't be a surprise to you that I say you should start with your persona. Because the reason that you want to start with this particular person in mind is because marketing is a conversation. It is a conversation happening between you and somebody who is in need of what it is that you have to offer. And ultimately, your goal is to make the connection, build the relationship, and ultimately have them trust you enough to either buy your product or engage with your service. So by designing a strategy that is there to meet a specific need for a specific person, you are going to be more likely to reach them in a way that they're actually interested in what it is that you have to offer. Now, this might not be the way that all marketing strategies are developed. There are some other ways that you could possibly start working on one. For example, you could first think about what resources do you have available. You could also look at what are other businesses in your industry or in your area doing. You could even just think about what it is that you actually like doing. Now, while all these factors are things that you should take into consideration, you shouldn't start with these. And I'll talk more about them later. But if you don't start with the person who you're trying to reach, you're probably going to end up missing the mark with your whole marketing strategy anyway. So your persona is a character that you're going to start to get to know really well. If you've watched my other videos or read any of the other blogs about your persona, you know that this is the main character of the story about your business. So building out the persona profile is a process that I work through, and you can actually grab a free resource to help do that for yourself, going through the questions to build out this persona profile. So the link is down there in the description. Now, for thinking about your strategy, you're going to want to picture this client and think about the goal, the specific goal that they have in mind. Remember, they are trying to achieve something. They're in this role and they've got a goal in mind. So probably to get started, there will be a goal that comes in mind that's like pretty easy. So these could be things like save money for retirement, get a good haircut, buy a first lawnmower, or even just plan a milestone birthday party. Now, these goals they're goals, they're fine, but they're kind of broad. And since you know your persona really well, right, you know a little bit more about what's going on in their mind, in their life. So you can actually dig down a little bit deeper and see what else is behind that specific goal. For example, the retirement saver, he actually just wants to be able to live independently and not become a burden on his family later on in life. That person who needs a haircut wants more than just a style. They want something that only requires 1 or 2 minutes to get ready in the morning so that they have more time to be productive throughout their day. That lawnmower buyer, they are really looking for guidance and advice on how to take care of their first yard that they own in their life. And that party planner, she's looking for a full service solution who will take her ideas and put them into action so that she can plan this event or have this event without any stress, any extra stress on her. So do you see how that works? Once you've identified this main goal that your persona is working towards, you want to get down deeper onto the specific motivations behind that, because that will help you get towards a really good strategy for reaching them, and also getting at how to talk to them in that strategy as well. So from there, you're going to want to start thinking about the journey that they're going to go on in order to achieve their goal. How are they going to actually, go from knowing that they need to do something to getting it done? So to do this, I use a 5-step process to map out the persona journey. And here is a really high-level overview of these 5 steps. So step number 1, I call awareness of need. And this is really just when and how do they become aware that they actually need something or want something. Step number 2 is consideration of options. How are they going about finding all of the options that they could utilize in order to achieve their goal? Step number 3, final decision making. So this is those last couple of options. How do they go about choosing between A or B? And then step number 4, using the selected option, use of final decision. So how do they actually utilize it? Do they actually utilize it? And then step number 5 is formation of opinion about decision. What do they think about what they decided to do? Was it right? Was it wrong? Did it help them achieve their goal? So that's a really brief overview of the 5 stages of the persona journey. I'll talk a little bit more about them at the end of the video as well. So as you're thinking about these stages, you want to actually kind of close your eyes and visualize the person. Like, think about them in their life going about trying to do whatever it is they need to do. Think, who are they talking to about this? Where are they doing it? What else is going on in their life at the time? When you start visualizing this, you're going to start to see how and remember how your persona is not just one part, right? They are not just the one thing that makes them qualified to want to work with you. That person who needs to plan a party, she probably also has a full-time job and is probably also taking care of kids. That man who wants to save for retirement, he probably has hobbies that he does, he probably has a job, he probably has kids, right? So there is more going on in the life of your persona, and you want to take that into consideration when you're thinking about your strategy. Now, I know this might sound a little bit tedious, but it actually reveals for you more ways that you can reach them. So you may not actually be able to have the specific clients there sitting next to you telling you these things, but this fictional character is the next best thing. So the more work you put into thinking about this persona, the better off you'll be. So now that you've started thinking about what's going on in their life, how they're spending their time, what books are they reading, what interests do they have, you can start to identify the points at which you can intersect with them in order to make that connection. So write down your ideas as you start brainstorming the places and spaces where you could meet your persona. So for example, maybe they're the one in the household that does the grocery shopping. So what about advertising at local grocery stores or coupon circulars? Maybe they're driving their kids to school and all the activities that they do. Maybe they're listening to the radio. So what about radio stations? They like to attend minor league baseball games in their area. So what about stadium advertising? They read online digital newspapers and magazines, so maybe digital advertising. You see how this works? So get your pen out and just write down ideas. Just brainstorm, put it all down there. Just think about this person, what it is that they're doing, where they're going, all these different parts of their life. Now, when you're finished with this, you'll look at your list and you'll probably start to see how you can group together particular ideas. Now, there are different ways you could classify marketing strategies. There's different ways you could categorize things, but here are a couple simple examples. So, digital versus traditional media, target versus influencer personas, website versus social media, paid versus organic. So take a look at your brainstorm. What is it telling you? It's not going to be perfect, right? But you don't need to get into the nitty-gritty details yet. This is just strategy. Strategy is about deciding the path down which you could go. And again, this is where it's good to keep in mind when I talk about in part 1 about how the path that you walk down is going to later on decide the tactics that you're going to employ, but we don't get to that part just yet. So you've looked at your list, you've kind of seen some themes of what you've written down, and you're feeling that you kind of have an idea of maybe one of a strategy that you should take. So here is where we start to think about some of those other factors, the factors that we didn't want to start with, but they are important. For example, what's your budget? What's your time and your resources? Also, what have other people done? Have you heard things? You could do research about this. And then what is it that you like to do or are able to do, or you have someone on your team who is able to do or enjoys doing? So, like I said, you don't want to start with these factors, but it is important. For example, if you don't have a big budget, you probably shouldn't be doing a big print campaign. And if there's something you really don't like doing, for example, social media, which it's okay to admit you don't like doing, you know what? Maybe that's something you delegate out, or maybe it's something you outsource. And the same thing if you just don't know how to do something. For example, SEO. A lot of business owners don't necessarily know what all goes into that. So maybe that's an area where you look to outsource or delegate if you decide that it is a really important strategy for you. So once you've identified this kind of overarching strategy for how you're gonna connect with your target persona, then you can start planning out the types of content that you'll need, the specific strategies, your timelines, your budgets, all those wonderful details. As I mentioned, when I was talking about the 5-step process, really there's a lot more that goes into each one of those stages. When I work with clients on projects, I go in depth into each one of these stages to help identify how you can reach the person and what are the kinds of things you need to be able to say to them. What kind of content do you need to have for them in order to move them into the next stage so that they are one step closer to working with you. It can be an in-depth process, but the work that's done in there helps you later on with planning out your more detailed marketing plan or framework. So if this sounds like something you want to start doing, check out the free resources that are linked in the description below, but also I would just love to have a conversation with you. So you can schedule time just to chat with me, and if it sounds like something that you want to go more in depth with, I'd love to work together with you. So those links are down there in the description, and if you enjoyed watching this video, please feel free to hit that like button or subscribe to the channel, and also let me know, what are your questions? What are your questions about marketing? What would you enjoy hearing me talk about or try to answer for you? And with that, folks, I hope you have a great rest of your day.